Oh, it's in the minutes. I should know. Okay.
Good evening. The meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please, Mr. Gorski?
Certainly. Ms. Antelis. Ms. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Braverman. Here. Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman. Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Mr. Nothstein.
Here.
Mr. Poi.
Here.
Mr. Prezioso.
Here.
Mr. Zarneski.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have a quorum present this evening.
Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted August 15, 2014, 1 at all schools, 2 Home News Tribune, 3 Cranberry Press, and 4 filed with the clerk of the municipality. And before we go to the public forum, for those of you who might be new or have not come in a while, you might notice a different look at the table up here. Dr. Hamilton has retired, and he has left our district to take another position. And we now have our interim superintendent, Mr. Dennis Ventrella.
Thank you, everybody, and I hope to live up to all of your expectations in this temporary position. Thank you.
So at this time, we will go to the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we will adhere to our 3-minute limit.
Mark Klein, 7 Crenshaw Court. Mr. V,
Yes.
you're where you belong.
Thank you.
We spoke about this 4 years ago. I know you'll do a great, great job because that's all you've ever done here is only the best for this district.
Thank you.
As far as Dr. Gorman, I wish you all the luck in the world in your new endeavor, and I hope you take with you the good that you did, and anything that may not have been successful or bad, I hope is forgotten and corrected. So again, I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Robert Roach, 18 Muirfield Boulevard. I was looking at the agenda on the website today and with the backup material, and I noticed it's somewhat different than what was on the website. I don't know whether that's because changes were made and different things, but I had a question on one of the items on the backup material that was on the website. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask the question, even though it's not on my page here. There seems to be some pages different.
I haven't gotten a revised agenda since Monday.
It's the backup material, not the particular agenda. You know, the backup.
Right.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed either, because I don't think anybody received any different backup materials. So.
Well,
So just go ahead, you can ask
okay,
your question.
it is different than what's on the website. But there was, in the vendor check items, there were several checks to, and I wish I had made a copy of the page that I had to question them, but it began with the H. It was like it was a Jewish name, and it was, the account was charged was for special education, but the comment was charter school. And I was just wondering why we were paying maybe $35,000 to a charter school. There were 2 different checks.
Okay, Mr. Gorski?
State law requires public school districts to pay tuition to charter schools for residents who reside in that township and enroll on their own accord in the charter school. The Jewish name that you refer to is probably the Hatikva Charter School.
Began with an H.
Hatikva, H, yes.
Okay.
And they're in East Brunswick. And we do have now, I believe, 3 students that go to that school, and we're required to pay tuition.
Why would it be charged to a special education account?
It's not special education. It's charged to an account called tuition other. It could be a special ed program that the child's engaged in that school. I don't know.
Okay.
But my answer is that's what it is. It's a Hatikva charter school, and it's a school in East Brunswick, and we're required, because the public funds follow the student in this regard, as long as it's an approved charter.
Okay.
That one is.
But if it was just tuition for them, wouldn't that be under a tuition account versus a special ed?
I can assure you that the charge is charged to a tuition account.
Okay, thank you.
As required by the state.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the agenda?
Ira Tesler, 11 Elliott Drive. Real quick, I'd like to thank Dr. Gorman for his services over the years. I'll be very brief. For all he's done for Monroe Township, I wish him the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing no one, we will close public forum and go to committee reports. Are there any committees that need to or would like to report this evening? And I'm sure Mr. Kaufman would love to.
It's like the old technology
Yeah.
reports, right? There was a curriculum meeting this evening, and we approved a series of new content curriculum materials, 22 of them to be exact, to be introduced this new school year. Thanks to all the staff for their hard work over the summer in creating all of this lovely content that our teachers and students can use. We also approved a new AP textbook, which is an e-book for AP Human Geography, which will be implemented, I'm assuming, in the high school since it's an e-book. And then we also had a lively discussion on the new park assessments that are becoming this year on hitting all of our schools and throughout the state. And we went through the website of the materials that's produced, which provides great information for teachers, parents, and students on the new park assessments that are hitting the district. It was also discussed how we're going to go ahead and market this new information to parents, for example, that as they're coming back from summer vacation to back to school nights and such. So we're going to be continuing to move forward with park assessment, I guess marketing material, for lack of a better term, so that parents can get a better idea of what it really means to them. More than likely, there'll be some announcements at back to school nights and some other references maybe to a park night that we talked about at the meeting, to have parents come in and really just concentrate on what park means to me as a parent. There'll be a lot more information coming out about the park assessments as we move forward into the school year. I think that was pretty much about it.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports? Mr. Prezioso?
Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, and we covered a few items. There was a cafeteria fund, Food Management Corporation. They made a profit. I'll ask Mike to give you some figures, and a year-end cash report. We also discussed the iPad insurance considerations, and according to the minutes and at the meeting, Mr. Washington presented to the committee an iPad insurance issue, whereas the district is engaged in a 3-year Apple lease, but only purchased a 2-year Apple Care insurance policy. With the expiration of that insurance, the district's 2,100 units would be uninsured for the 2000-2015 school year. He indicated that approximately 350 to 400 units have crack screen damage every year. Mr. Washington recommended an external insurance policy to cover the 2014-2015 school year to ensure a quick turnaround and repair time and a limitation on financial risk to the district. The committee recommended that Mr. Gorski procure the insurance through compliance with the NJ purchasing laws, that the following changes be made. Students will be asked to pay $65 for insurance, and a $50 deductible upon damage should be paid by the parents. And that's it for the iPads. And there was also an audit update. And Mike, if you'd like to do that?
Sure.
As Mr. Prezioso, Chair of the Finance Committee, stated, the cafeteria operations are managed through a food service management company. And the board may recall that last year we went out for an RFP, which is an exemption from public bidding, request for proposal for solicitation of food service management companies, even though we were getting a satisfactory performance from our former. And through that process, we found a vendor that has dramatically improved the cafeteria food, is in compliance with all the federal regulations, and they guaranteed us a profit of $95,582 before depreciation for the cafeteria operations. And we're pleased to announce that the profit before depreciation for the year ended June 30, 2014, tentatively is $196,457, which exceeds the guarantee by over $100,000. So that recommendation to the board and the board's acceptance of such is really paying off, both in terms of better food and better service throughout the schools, as well as good fiscal operations. And we are now engaged in the audit. The auditor has reviewed all of the district's minutes. Minutes for the public's information is where there's an official record of approved contracts, and the auditor begins there to make sure that the particular contracts during the year were approved by the board, that the dollar amounts match the purchase order, that also matches the contract, that the payments don't exceed that, and all the terms are met. So that process is ongoing. The auditor has selected a sample of transactions to verify that far exceeds the required statistical sample by the accounting board, and we're progressing with the audit.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Any other committee reports? Mr. Poi?
We don't usually have a report from the Personnel Committee since that is a closed meeting, but we met yesterday and there was a considerable discussion about athletic trainers for our sports programs, and we will be further discussing that, as well as there was discussion in terms of the assistant superintendent vacancy with Dr. Gorman leaving, and Superintendent Ventrilo will be moving ahead to fill that vacancy. So at some point, hopefully in the near future, we will have a recommendation from Superintendent Ventrilo.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
About the other report. Mr. Gorski, you mentioned that the food services garnered something like $100,000 over what they had guaranteed. Now, I know that's a proprietary fund, and so any profits that fund makes has to stay within that fund. Is that correct?
That is correct. Because federal pass-through monies are a revenue source in that fund, the profit or retained earnings is restricted within that food service operation fund. And it's designed that if you have a profit, specifically if you have a retained earnings, which is accumulation of years' profits, that grows to an extent where you have so much cash on hand, you are required to address your lunch prices by reducing them. The food service operation is designed by the state to be a break-even fund, not to profit off student lunches. So although we do have a handsome profit this year, it will add to the retained earnings. There is still yet a depreciation charge, which averages about $150,000 a year, mainly because of the cafeteria equipment in the school and everything that's still being depreciated. So $50,000 approximately will contribute to retained earnings, and we will continue to monitor that and address lunch prices accordingly.
Thank you.
Arminio?
Yes. Does that mean that if equipment goes or anything that needs to be repaired can come out of that fund instead of a general budget fund or an operating budget?
If equipment that serves the food service operation goes, it can be purchased from that fund, absolutely. Ovens, cash registers, those type of things, refrigerators. We recently replaced a delivery truck to take lunches within the schools. So yes, and that would be further depreciated against income in that fund.
Is there any cap on that, like that there's a maximum accumulation that can be had by that fund?
Yeah, it's a multiple of monthly cash usage, and we're under that amount. It's checked every year. It's also an audit, a checklist item that the auditor keeps an eye on. But we've always been under that amount. We're not hoarding cash in the fund, and we make every effort to keep lunch prices as low as possible.
Thank you.
And in fact, while we're on the topic, our lunch prices are among the lowest in the county and have been for many, many years.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, is there any other committee reports that need to come before us? Mr. Notstein?
Actually, I just had a clarification. I need a clarification, or maybe for the public. We're changing the iPad insurance fee from $65 a person, and that $50 deductible only applies for a cracked screen. Is that correct?
Mr. Gorski?
No, the $50 deductible applies if it has to get sent in for repaired, no matter what the damage is. It could be a cracked screen, it could be a dropped case.
But not mechanical or electronic failures, correct?
It could be that too.
Really? Okay, that's not how I interpreted that. I thought we
Now,
discussed.
there is a warranty, but this is more through usage type problems. A kid drops a book bag and it doesn't operate, gets scratched, broken. If it has to go back through usage, it's the deductible that's now being passed through to the parents. If it's a warranty issue, if the Apple device fails on its own, then the $50 does not get charged to the parent.
Okay, that's what I'm into.
And those
Okay.
devices have been pretty reliable. We've had few, if any, that I know of that went back due to their own
And
failure.
I'm thinking the mechanical switches, for on off. The headphone jack is always a weak point. I'm just trying to figure, would that be considered damage? To me, I don't think that should be.
Something de minimis like that, our staff could probably handle. Broken buttons, stuff like that. We're not going to waste time sending it back and forth. But if it's something material and it has to go back and it's through usage, then the deductible applies.
And do they have any type of a hot swap feature where, you can send it back in and they already got another one returning to you? Or will the student be without this piece of equipment for X number of days?
No, student will never be without the piece of equipment because it is used for instruction. So the board generously purchased a few hundred extra units, which are loaners, and they're kept in the tech office. So if one has to go back, the child's not missing a lesson or won't miss homework. They have a loaner.
Thank you.
Ms. Arminio?
Is that a per item charge, or is it one $50 deductible and that's it for the year?
It's per item.
For damage?
If you break
Okay.
it twice, you're subject to 2 deductibles.
Thank you.
Ms. Braverman?
Yeah, I'm missing something. Is that $65 charge on our agenda?
Yes. It's in the
Will you
business
show me
administrator's
where?
report.
I missed it.
Number H? Like it.
His section?
H.
Yes.
Your section?
Yes, sir. Page 16, letter H, insurance coverage for district iPads. It's a rather lengthy resolution procuring the insurance through extraordinary unidentifiable services.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Preziosa?
That insurance policy is only for 1 year, because we're short the 1 year, correct? We had
That is
3 years.
correct. It's a 1-year insurance policy.
Hold on, see it.
The 65 isn't on there, but it's the insurance policy.
Page 16.
H.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we will go to the superintendent's report with Mr. Ventrella.
Madam President, before we go into my report, I would just like to recognize Dr. Gorman's career here in Monroe Township. Maybe just share some information publicly as far as part of his resume, as a matter of fact. Jeff began Monroe on July 1, 1996 as an assistant principal of Applegarth Middle School. After that, he became the principal of Applegarth Middle School, to his credit, in July 2000 and was there for about 8 years. In July 2008, he was appointed assistant superintendent of schools. I just want to personally and professionally, on behalf of the district, Jeff, just to say thank you for everything that you've done for the kids, for the programs, and for the teachers and for the district. Thank you for your years of service. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that. Jeff, you really did quite a job. You really did. You did the heavy lifting, putting the computers into the school. And we will probably be thankful in the future. Even now, some of us are. One of the problems with education is everybody goes to school and therefore they're experts. And that's too bad, and that's the kind of junk we have to put up with. But I want to thank you for really doing the heavy lifting, having those computers in here, and doing the very basic work to put this school district on the map. Thank you.
We usually do that after the report is done, but we could do it before. So, Mr.
So
Chiarella.
I could wait.
Yeah, we,
All right, I'm just gonna go. Dr. Gorman, Jeff, I just, I've known you for a long time. We go way back to our PTA days when I was in the PTA of Applegarth and you were the principal, and I thought you talked way too much about math back then. I didn't understand what you were saying, but I am grateful for your service and everything that you've done for us, and I'll miss you personally, but I know that our district is going to miss you. And sometimes I think we don't end up realizing how much we miss someone and their contributions until they are gone, and that's unfortunate. But I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So thank you.
anyone else wish to share? I'll wait till after the report.
Madam Board President, it is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve personnel items A through F by consent roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Notstein, any comments or questions for Mr. Ventrello? Mr. Prezioso?
D&E, why are we taking away boys soccer coaches? Are we replacing them?
And Anthony, I can't answer that right now, but I can certainly find that answer for you tomorrow, if that's okay.
We're not replacing anybody. We're not doing away with any soccer coaches.
Well, they're resigning from,
They may be,
are they being replaced?
Yes.
Probably somebody who really can't handle that position anymore resigned, and we will
But
definitely.
I didn't see it in the agenda.
I will get that answer to you, Anthony.
Anyone else? Well, before we have our roll call, I'll talk about Dr. Gorman. For some reason, I have this very bad habit of calling you Mr. Gorman, and it's probably I've known you since 1996 when you started in this district and I had children here. So we've grown together. A lot of what we were put on the map last year with Innovate New Jersey and with the Park Readiness and AP Honors District and being named number 39 in the state. We couldn't have been recognized without the hard work that came out of the curriculum office. And you being the leader of the curriculum office have really made a difference in Monroe and where we are and how we are noticed by other people now, both statewide and nationally. So I just want to say that first I was surprised to hear that you were leaving, disappointed, but I wish you the best, and in your endeavors, you and your family, you have to do the right thing for them. So we wish you continued success, and I'm sure that we will be reaping the benefits of what you've done here for many, many years to come. Thank you. So we will have a roll call on accepting this superintendent's report.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nothstein.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, personnel items A through
Sir?
F passes.
I was not asked to vote.
I beg your pardon. Ms. Armenio.
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Board President, motion passes.
Thank you. We will go to board action items.
Madam Board President, it is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, that they take action on items A through G as approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
Mr. Chiarella? Is there a second?
Tom Notstein.
Mr. Notstein? Any comments or questions for Mr. Ventrello? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso,
Yes.
Mr. Poi,
Yes.
Mr. Nostine,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes to all, but I'm just going to go ahead and recuse on E just to be safe.
recuse on E as an excellent. Mr. Zarneski,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Braverman,
Yes.
Ms. Arminio,
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, board action items A through G passes.
Madam Board President, this concludes my report for this evening.
Is the policy on the sports,
Yes.
is that listed on here?
Yes.
Yes,
It is? Okay, that must be come later.
5450.
5450.
Okay, all right. So we will go to the business administrator's report. Mr. Gorski.
Madam Board President, before I begin the Business Administrator's report, I also wish to acknowledge Jeff's contribution to the district. Anybody who feels that curriculum is an easy nut to crack, something that's easy to understand, needs to take a course like I had in my master's program where you study something like Understanding by Design, UBD. It's a very complex, very technical profession, and Mr. Gorman has served behind the scenes in a lot of that technicality very well. It's been a pleasure working with him on the budget so throughout the years, and it's with disappointment that I received your news that you were leaving us. Madam, I also want to report to the board and the community about a transportation route that was initially cut from the budget. It was a Mill Lake M011 route, and it was reduced because of the district being over cap with $2.7 million of budget cuts. We reviewed that route more closely, and from a parity standpoint, it's my recommendation that we reinstate that route. It had a $42,000 cost savings for that particular segment of the transportation cuts alone. And we were able to offset the $42,000 addition back to the budget by eliminating another route, placing those students on existing routes, and better utilizing efficiency within our own fleet. These elementary age students were walking about a mile from the furthest stop to school, and although there are 2 crossing guards there, and although that's far under the state's maximum 2-mile limitation where they require transportation, it's in the best interests of the students and the district to reinstate that route. It does not require board action, but I just wanted that noted for the record. Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through N be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
Mr. Chiarella?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kaufman. Mr. Chiarella.
Thank you. On the bill list, it looks like, and there could be a reason for it, but I'm just trying to understand it myself. It looks like for first student buses, there are 2 entries for $7,072.56. It just struck me as odd that they were the same exact dollar amount.
Yes. That's commonplace. When we cut checks, we have a lot of reoccurring items, and that could have been 1 and 2 months payments paid at one time, or it could be 2 routes that we're paying that are the same amount. But we do have a software check, and if something comes up that's a duplicate amount that's been paid already, it reminds the user to look into it.
Oh.
So I'm confident that that's accurate. But thank you.
Mr. Notstein?
Mr. Gorski, with regards to the loan that we've been repaying through the MECA funds, could you just give a little report possibly and let us know where we stand? I think I saw an entry in there for $5,000 for loans payable. Could you just let us know and I apologize for not asking you prior to the meeting, but I kind of got a little tied up. But if you just let us know where we stand, how much has been paid, that would be great.
Sure. From the June 30th financial statement for MECA, there was a tentative year-end profit of about $75,400, and the loans payable account, which is a balance sheet account, does not impact profit, has a balance due back to the general fund of $274,029. that is decreasing every month in accordance with the board's action to pay it down by $5,000. So that's what you've been seeing, a reduction in that account.
And that's that entry in here where it says Monroe Township Board of Ed, loans payable?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It hits the bill list as an expenditure, and it's posted to a balance sheet liability account, being the loans payable to the general fund. It's an interfund loan, and every month that balance continues to decrease.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will have a roll call. Sorry.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarello.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
No on H,
No.
yes on the rest.
No on H. So noted. Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes to everything, but recuse on letter N.
Recuse on N as in Nancy. So
Yes.
noted. Madam Board President, board action items A through N passes.
Hey.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Did you want to?
Okay. Not quite finished yet. Thank you for reminding me. The district has had a vendor dispute that dates back to before I became the business administrator. And there was a change of contractual terms with Verizon where we went from basic telephone lines to internet lines for the phones. And the way Verizon had billed all the services that we had at that time, they were on one aggregate bill. And we noticed and fought some billing discrepancies and misinterpretation of terms going back many years. We've talked about this before. This is where our attorney did have a conflict on this issue, and I was comfortable negotiating with Verizon myself. And I'm pleased to report that the matter has concluded to our favor, I'm certain, and we received a sizable check back. The terms of the agreement are somewhat confidential, so I really don't want to go into too much detail, but it's in excess of a six-figure check that goes back to fund balance, back to the taxpayers. It was a great endeavor and a big win for us, and took a lot of people to get there. Reggie Washington, Nancy Tagliaferro, Luann from our office, and I helped with the negotiation piece.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move right along. Oh, Mr. Notstein, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm used to being ignored. It's making me feel at home.
Well, you moved down the table a little, too.
True. I just had actually, I just want a clarification on policy 5450. It's my understanding that we corrected the issue that's been kind of coming up at several meetings with regards to the recognition of the marching band. Has that been resolved? I read the policy, but I didn't have the old policy.
Yeah, we did that probably in the spring. The policy committee came up and we agreed on it, but we didn't want to approve it then because it would have had to start then,
Sure.
and we didn't want to do anything retroactive, so we figured we would approve it tonight, and this way it's fair and to everybody for the start of the new school year.
Fantastic. It looked like a good, fair policy, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Did a lot of work on that. So I think I'm going to the board president's report. So as part of my board president's report each month, I'd like to give an update on where we stand for the search for the new superintendent, because as a Board of Education, that is the most important job that we have to do, is look for the next leader of our district. And the conversations we have as a board, I believe, should be held in the public, conducted in the public, and your community input is very important to the process. But first, I'd like to say that both Ms. Antelis and Mr. Kaufman will be excused from the entire search process due to law because of family members working in the district and a could-be conflict of interest. And it's unfortunate that they have to be excluded in the process because both of them have been involved in searches before, and they have a lot of valuable information and contribute a lot of experience to the process. But unfortunately, I know you were involved, both of you were involved in the last superintendent search, but the laws have changed and they are no longer able to participate. Again, I think that's very unfortunate. So last meeting, we had a discussion on where or who we're going to have as help to the board in going through the process. So that's what we're going to discuss today and come up to some kind of a solution or an agreement so that we can start moving on the process. So school boards did give us a presentation. I have received a couple of names of search organizations, but they don't give you a price. They want to come in and be interviewed and then give the price. So I have no idea how much that would cost or what would be what their package would include. So I don't know if everybody had the opportunity to read over the little booklet that school boards gave us, or how you feel about how you want to handle this. Mr. Notstein?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through this, and obviously, we did use the school boards last time, that's correct. And I requested the materials from last time because I thought that could help us in this search, but I guess we don't have those materials. So I think it's imperative that no matter what we do now, we save the materials, because we don't have to always go back and, I'm a firm believer in duplicating success. And we obviously came up with a criteria last time. And the school board, since we went with them, they had to generate a report according to what they're doing now. I'm sure it was the same. So they generated 2 reports that would have been very beneficial for this board to see. So it's unfortunate that we can't see them. But with that in mind, I would definitely be in favor of going with the school boards again. The program that I'd be interested in is the $12,000 program. Basically, it looks like the only thing that's lacking in that program versus the $15,000 program is a strategic planning 3D model. So it sounds like, from my perspective as a novice here, that that would be a good program to have, and they would really sound like they're going to work very closely with us to come up with a plan based on our criteria. So I guess if we decide to go this way, the ball's back in our court as far as coming up with a criteria that we would want to go with.
And Mr. Zarneski, who has just been through the process, might be able to help elaborate on school boards and what they've done and how you fared through the process.
I found to be very easy. They take you step by step through everything. They have legal come in and give you counseling on what legal ramifications everything and everybody's doing. They'll come in, like we discussed here, about having conflict of interest with certain board members, all the way through the final process to where you work out a contract. They have their team come in and sit down and go over with us what is involved in putting a contract together, giving us a sample of what goes on and how to go about working that out with the prospective new superintendent. So I found it to be very enlightening, very easy to work through. They have teams set up to contact if we have any questions. So it was a very valuable service. They take all the applications that come in. They do it on as Gwen had said, on several websites, and compile all the information according to our criteria on what we want, and then they also categorize it in a way where here are the applicants that fit our criteria, here are the ones that don't, and these people don't even qualify. Because you do get several applications of people qualified just to want to get their names out there, and it's done all the time. And I found it to be very streamlined, very to the point and direct. School boards also has a lot of personal information on some of these candidates because of the field service reps that might have worked with them in other districts, that she doesn't offer any opinions, but just offers us maybe a few different references or a few other areas to look at as far as their qualifications that might not be on the resumes. So I found it overall to be very helpful, especially in that aspect where in our case, it's Gwen Thornton, might know a few of these applicants.
Do they do the advertising?
They do all the advertising, they do everything. We just have to sit back and say, thank you, and look over the information they give us and work on our choices.
So they will come to us for the criteria. So we don't have to discuss criteria tonight. We just need to know whether.
We need to know what we're gonna do tonight as far as what our criteria is as a board, what we're looking for, whether it be in going on to pass a doctorate, no doctorate, how many years of education you want, those sort of things. We're gonna need to know to give to them so they can put out the proper advertisement for the job.
Okay, do they come in and speak to us about that, or we?
They will, yes.
They will, okay. Mr. Poi?
On page 3 of this document that I believe Ms. Thornton passed out at the last board meeting, she outlined, or the document outlines 4 different levels of program. Which level did you use in Jamesburg?
I'd have to actually look at that to tell you, because I don't remember. That was almost a year ago now we went through this.
Because there are some minor differences from one level to another, and even though I do favor that we use the New Jersey School Boards Association to assist in the process, I think we need to consider which level program do we want, and is it worth the additional cost for the higher level program, so to speak?
Well, Mr. Nothstein suggested the $12,000 program.
And that I think we need to discuss as opposed
Right.
to the $6,500
Right.
program, okay?
I believe we did the $1,200 one, if memory serves correct.
12,000.
12,000, I mean. Sorry.
Is there any other comments from board members who can participate?
Well, I think
You
I
can't.
can participate at least at this level.
I don't think you
It has nothing to do
can.
with the search. It has nothing to do with anything
You
other.
can't, you can't.
We had a board member who was conflicted, and any time that we went into any type of discussion, it was mostly in closed session, because after we go from this step here, everything that we talk about will be in closed session. That
Right.
board member was excluded.
Right. Anyone else have a comment? Ms. Arminio?
Yes, I also would like to know if we can get, again, stakeholder input on this. Choosing how we go about actually soliciting for candidates is one thing, but I think I would like to hear from members of the public, or at least a committee that talks about what our goals
I
and
can
everything
answer
are.
that.
I mean,
School boards, when they come in and do this, not only do they sit with us and ask us what our criteria is, they set up separate meetings with the general public and other organizations on the outside that we are not to have any part of, simply for the fact that you're gonna have members of the general public who would be afraid to give some kind of input to what they would like to see in the district, and having a board member there, they feel that it would be counterproductive to try to get the proper information from the public. So we're asked not to go to those meetings.
well, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's acceptable.
It's done.
I understand that. But my point is, I think we could also open it as board members to, if there are some members of the public who choose to speak with us. I don't see any harm in listening to the public if they would like to speak. In addition to what the school board does to have independent committees with the public, I don't have any idea.
Those members of the public have every right to speak in public session here. The public is not entitled to sit in on our closed session discussions about the superintendent, nor, like school boards suggest, that we are not, or should not sit in on discussions about them not wanting to influence the public in any way or skew any kind of thoughts or recommendations the public might have to that aspect.
And that's acceptable to me, except.
We do get the reports from school boards on what we do to align our.
With the criteria of the
Right.
different groups that they speak to. I know they talk to administrators, they talk to staff, they talk to PTA, they talk to parents. They'll invite the seniors in and have conversations with them.
Well, is that before we set criteria or after? I mean,
Everybody's setting, we will be setting criteria, they will be setting criteria, they will be having an input into the criteria, and then it will be brought back to the board, and we will decide what criteria is important to us
Correct.
with the input of the community. But right now, we just need to decide who we're going to go with before we decide anything else, because that could make a difference.
Okay.
So if,
I move
Mr.
that
Poi?
we have NJSBA assist in the superintendent search.
at what
Second.
cost?
Excuse me?
At which cost?
Well, first, let's just get that
Okay.
on the board.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Is there any comments, questions, discussion? Mr. Braverman?
I seconded it.
Oh,
Thank you.
seconded. I thought Mr. Chiarella did. I'm sorry. Comments, questions, discussion? If not, then we will have a roll call on using school boards, New Jersey school boards, as our search group.
Mr. Prezioso,
Yes.
Mr. Poi,
Yes.
Mr. Nostine,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman, do you wish to recuse?
Sure.
Mr. Zarneski,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Braverman,
Yes.
Ms. Arminio,
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So now that we know we're going to use school boards, we have to decide which program we're going to use. Mr. Notstein?
Yeah, I was looking at this in depth over the weekend, and the primary differences really between the 6,500 and the 12,000 are the consultant interviews and the consultant participating in all candidate interviews. I mean, the consultant interviews the first round, okay? The consultant participates in all candidates' interviews, and the consultant performs the initial reference checks in conjunction with the interviews. That, to me, is the biggie right there. Granted, it's almost double the $6,500 program, but we all agree that this is the most important job that we do. To me, to cut corners here could jeopardize us down the road and possibly change the district in the 3 to 5 years that we're going to have this new superintendent potentially for. So based on that and the differences and the small difference in the price in the big picture, even though I am an advocate of saving money, I think when it comes to the most important job that we're going to do, I would suggest and recommend that we go with the more expensive $12,000 program.
Would you like to make that into
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
I would like to make the motion to go with the $12,000 program with the New Jersey School Boards Association.
Okay, and that's seconded by
Second.
Mr. Braverman. So now we can open it up for discussion. So anybody have any comments or questions? Mr. Poi?
Well, I do question why we need them to do the initial reference checks. I think we have people in the district that can conduct that.
I don't think that would be something that the district would do. It would
Excuse
be
me?
that the district would do. It would be the board would have to do that.
Madam, to facilitate the conversation, at that sophisticated level of superintendency position fulfillment, New Jersey School Boards has many years of expertise, and they are the search firm for that process. And as far as checking references and so on, it may be beyond the sophistication of our central office staff to reach out to a former school board and ask very sophisticated questions of their superintendent's performance, whereas school boards is really oriented to do that.
And under current labor laws, do you think the district will provide information beyond the fact that, yes, they've been employed here from this period of time? Because I know there's I've heard, these stories about when you do reference checks, there's very little they'll tell you any longer for fear of lawsuits.
Yes.
Anyone else? Mr.
On
Sarneski?
the reference check thing, I did have a question to Gwen when she was doing our reference checking. There's a whole team of people that go out and pretty much know all these people they're going to contact. So they already have a personal touch with them, and they do tend to answer the questions that they have. They have formatted questions on these reference checks that none of us, I don't know, myself, I personally haven't called anybody for a reference. So for me to take an application from somebody and ask questions on that and what to do, I wouldn't even know where to begin with. This team of people that they had put together over the years to do this process already is familiar with A, how to do it, and B, might be familiar with some of these people, might have already talked to them in the past on other jobs that they went on, where they're comfortable on either side working with them.
And they have experience that probably not too many of us have in that area. Anyone else? Mr. Prezioso?
Question to Robert, you think we would get the same interviewers? How does that work? Do they have a whole team of different groups of interviewers, or?
What do you mean
Well,
interviewers?
you work with a certain amount of, the interviewers, correct? When they
You mean
interview-
applicants?
Yes, they interviewed the applicants. Now, would those same people be interviewing?
It's
our
who's ever
applicants?
looking for a job. Oh, you mean the people as far as checking references? I'm sure they would be. It's a whole team, but again, this is a different district. There's different qualifications, different things that we're gonna be looking for, different recommendations and suggestions from the public on what the public wants to see.
Yeah, my question that way is, I want to make sure we have the same quality that you had.
Oh, I'm sure we are. I'm sure it would be the same people, because like I said, this is a team that Gwen has, and actually school boards has, it's a whole separate department that sit there, and this is what they do.
Was she part of that? The interviews and stuff, Gwen?
To a certain point, yeah.
Anyone else? Ms. Arminio?
This may be a question for the school board or the attorney. I think I've read recently, and I could be wrong, we cannot get people from outside of New Jersey. Is there a law regarding that now?
President.
Yes.
So can you just explain it to the public and me again? We can't seek people from outside. It's a certification issue?
Law, I think.
The residency, that's where it was.
But they can be hired from outside the state, but they have to have residency within a year.
Within a year, and they have to have the New Jersey certifications,
Yes, they would
right?
have to have.
That's correct. That's correct. Everything that has been said is correct. And if you're working and you went in, you took your employment before that law went into effect, you're grandfathered only in that spot.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then there's a motion on the table to go with the $12,000 program. So we will have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
McHughes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes,
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes for $12,000 fee under the school board option.
Okay. And would we want to go through characteristics that we would want first now, or would we want to wait till school boards come in?
I probably would
Aye.
suggest have school boards come in and walk us through the process in more detail.
Okay, before we decide to do something.
I think it'd be beneficial to us, so we're not wasting a lot of time between then and now. Each of us think of some qualifications or some attributes we would like to see from the new superintendent. So this way, when school boards come in, we all have an idea of what we want, what we're looking for, which will streamline the process, and we're not sitting here all night, because we're gonna find, or all of you are gonna find out, there's gonna be a lot of late nights doing this over the next several months, a lot.
Tom?
Yeah, I definitely would not want to do it tonight, because I'd also like to get it on the agenda so we can get some public input and see where they stand on this. Secondly, I was wondering from a Jamesburg perspective, obviously, according to this, they build a report based on your criteria. I don't believe that would be confidential, because a criteria is something that would have to be public. I would like to see that piece of information, to see the criteria that you developed, so that we have actually some sort of a foundation that we can either add or subtract to.
What we were looking for in Jamesburg would be, I'm sure, totally different from what you're looking for here.
Possibly.
I mean, well, not possibly, just with simply the size of the district and the overwhelming difference of students, buildings, and the work that goes into a superintendent's job in this capacity is totally different from what we were looking for in a small little K-8 district. with
Nonetheless,
one-third of the students.
would it be possible to see that? I'm not saying we're going to copy it.
And I would have no problem, I'm sure, copying it. If we have it available, I'm sure we can.
No, I don't suggest that we're going to copy the criteria for our district, but I would sure love to see just a sample.
Well, that's what Gwen will come in here and work us through what the
don't wanna show
basics are. Huh?
You don't want to show us.
It has nothing to do with not showing you. It's just, it's going to be totally different. I think it's mostly irrelevant of what goes on. I can get it and show it to you. I don't think any problem, but I'm just trying to emphasize that the fact of the being two totally different districts in not only size, but in everything else.
We get that.
Mr. Prezioso, did you have a question?
No, that's okay. You answered it.
Okay, so we're okay. We'll get in touch with school boards and then see how we proceed from here. Okay, then I think that concludes the board president's report. So is there any other business by any member of the Board of Education? Mr. Poi?
Yes, in the personnel section of tonight's agenda, items Q through AA, we approve those. And therefore, supplemental instruction or supervision, because they all occur after school. And it totals about $130,000 altogether. Or it could, let me put it that way. It could total $130,000, a little bit under that. I think it would be desirable, and it would also be the board's responsibility to ask that participation in all of those different supplementary programs that occur after school, that we have an audit of that. What is the level of participation if we're going to be spending $130,000 on it? This is from, giving help in math, giving help in foreign language, giving help in history, supervising the kids that are simply staying after school because they don't have a ride home. I've heard reports, and I realize it's just, it's heard reports, but I've heard reports that that in some cases there are no students there, or there's only one student there, and this is at various after-school activities, and I just think it would be appropriate that, and I don't think it would be that difficult to administer, that be audited by asking the people that are in charge to have the students sign in, and that those be collected, and that then a little bit of data analysis be done by someone in terms of how many students on a daily basis are participating in these. And if it's sufficient to warrant the expenditure, then fine. But otherwise, I think we could be wasting some money.
If I may, Doug, is that I believe that's probably an administrative position as far as, are you looking for the enrollment in those classes?
Well, they're not classes.
Specifically. Well, they're courses after school, and I get that.
Well, they're not really courses either.
Programs after school.
They're basically, most of it is at the high school, where kids can stay after if they want to or not, but they don't have to, okay? And
it's a lot of times there are children who stay after to wait for their ride home.
Oh, I know, and that was a separate item, that one. But what I've heard is that sometimes, particularly for the late session, there aren't any kids waiting there, okay? Now, I heard last year when I brought this up, well, if they don't wait there, then the teacher doesn't turn anything in, okay? And that could very well be. But we're also offering assistance in history and foreign language, science, math, language arts, all those different programs. We're paying teachers to stay after to give supplementary instruction to students, and I'm simply saying, is it worth what we're paying for it? Does it need to be offered every day? Because most of these are set up for 180 days.
Yeah, and then there's the other thing where they're helping students after school, so even if they're helping one child, they're there for that child.
I realize that.
I think that's an administrative issue on how they handle the high school.
But what's wrong with the board asking that be audited? I asked for it last year, and it was denied, and I just see no reason why we can't have some accountability there. I don't see it as micromanaging. I don't see that we're stepping on any toes. We're simply asking, what is the level of participation in these after-school programs that we provide on a voluntary basis?
We can get the numbers to you, Doug. It could be done.
Yeah.
last year's numbers? Because we,
I don't
obviously
think
we're
you could
not
do,
gonna
no,
have
I'm not
any-
asking for last year's. I don't think you can get it.
Well, yeah, because
It's over with.
They would be last year's numbers. They wouldn't obviously be this year's numbers.
But going forward this year, because the school year hasn't started, it's a very simple matter to, as the year goes along, we get, you know, we just have the kids.
You want a monthly audit of our,
It could even be done every 3 months. They could put it together, as long as they do it on a daily basis. It's not that much, I don't think.
Ms. Arminio?
Yeah, I would compliment you on that thought, because I think the efficacy of any program should be something that every once in a while we could take a look at. And if it's on a quarterly basis, I think would be okay. And just make sure that we're serving the needs of the students while also making sure that there's no
And-
waste.
That was, I believe, one of Dr. Hamilton's goals last year, was to look at all these different programs and to recommend if any should be eliminated, or continued, and I guess that's something we could talk with the next superintendent. That is not our job as a Board of Education. That's more of an administrative job, to see what's working in the district and come back with the recommendation if it's not working.
But I think it was a goal that we didn't hear anything about.
Madam?
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 Mr. Gorski?
Respectfully, when I hear terms like auditing programs and determining the efficacy of a program, those are most definitely administrative functions that should be performed at the high school and administrative level. There's a unique sophistication that goes into determining the efficacy of a program, and that's something that should, and by position, is entrusted in administrative levels. I don't mean this with any disrespect, but I don't know if the board has generally the sophistication to determine efficacy of programs, or have evidence enough to audit programs based upon.
Well, but if you remove efficacy and deal with the level of participation,
Mr. Prezioso?
I mean, that's very objective.
If it has to be cost efficient, I mean, we're looking to save some money, and if it's not cost efficient, we should be looking into it.
Well, it's just like having CMAC. It's there if a student needs that, and it might not be every day that
It's
is.
one student for $170,000, it's not worth it, so we should be looking into some of these programs.
It is if it's your student.
Madam, I believe that it is overseen at the high school level and at the curriculum office level and at the superintendent's level. I don't think it's going to the extreme that we're paying $160,000 for one student. I don't want anybody in the public to get the impression that that's the administrative function here and something like that would be allowed. Just want to state that.
Do you have any?
Certainly, we can come up with a number. That's easy enough to do. But I think what Mike is trying to share with you is the fact that it's a really administrative responsibility. And I think, as Mr. Braverman also said as well, too, is that sometimes, if you look at efficacy as far as of a program, it's not just because of the quantity of the children that are involved in the program. It's also the quality and the impact on those kids and their educational programs in their lives. So certainly, if you want numbers, Doug, we can certainly come up with some numbers. If you give me the specific programs that you're looking at, I can probably give you something as far as what the numbers were maybe for last year, et cetera. But if you're going to make a determination as far as then saying, well, based upon, let's say, the low number that are in a program, and then, whether you're going to get rid of it because of the financial obligation, I would say that's not for you to do. I would not want you to go in that direction as your superintendent.
Well, as I said earlier, but I'd like to repeat it, we've approved these programs to operate every day of the week throughout the school year, with few exceptions. There are a few exceptions where instead of 180 days, it's authorized to be 120 days. Now, if it turns out that we are averaging 2 students per day that are seeking assistance with social studies because we have a history forum, or they're seeking assistance, let's say, in world languages, okay? And we see that we're averaging 2 students per day, then why not consider, instead of offering it every day, offering it 3 days a week? Why does it have to be every day if we're getting so few students? I'm certain that student that was going on Tuesday could probably go on Monday or Wednesday. All I'm saying is, we authorize this program, but we don't know to what level it is being utilized. And I'm not talking about the efficacy of the program. I think all of these after-school supplementary instructional programs that we have at the high school, in theory, they're wonderful to have. Right. Okay? But all I'm saying is, are the students taking advantage of it? Because we're spending about $130,000, and sometimes we wonder, where can we get $130,000 to pay for something? And I'm not looking to cut it. I just want to get some accountability there. That's all.
Michelle, just 1 minute. I see Mr. Goodall's in the back. Matter of fact, it's Matt. Rob, are you able to come up to the microphone just to address the situation at this time?
Before that,
And the other thing, Doug, too, is that this year it might be an anomaly. We're having the APARC assessments from grades 3 to 12 to 11, and that after-school program might be vital to a specific person. We also don't know every child in that school, whether high school, elementary, middle school, everybody has a different schedule. They might only be able to come on Tuesday. Somebody else might only be able to come on Thursday. We have kids who work. We have kids who have involved in sports. So,
well,
let Mr. Goodall.
Just Kathy alludes to some of the stuff I was going to speak to, but Mr. Ventrella, I can get you, I'm sure, some numbers once we get back to school and work with the people who supervise those programs. I don't know if exactly everything on that list, but I'll do the best I can from last year. I know they were keeping pretty good records. But historically, when we added programs, we considered the kids participating in other activities. They were going for multiple subjects. We certainly knew that Friday probably wasn't going to be a heavy participation day, but we did provide that for kids, especially math, science, and English, which we provide something every day, for kids to come on Friday if they're involved in activities all during the week. Just in my view as the building principal, the vast majorities of the things listed on that list are very heavily participated in, especially in math and science and language arts. The subject areas that are less than 180 days a year, that's where you accounted for that and provide less instruction for that. As far as the supervision after school, that always varies about what's going on during the school year. Reports of kids not being at the second session close to 6 o'clock, well, maybe on June 18th and June 17th, that's true because the kids are just, they're done with their activities for the most part, but we do provide it for those who are still doing things. In the middle of the winter athletic season, it's completely packed. So we did just provide a consistent supervision for the 180 days for all of our students, and we did consider, and we do know, that on some days there'll be high levels of participation and some days there'll be low levels of participation.
Thank you, Mr. Goodall. Ms. Arminio?
For the record, I'd like to change the word efficacy because it's been misinterpreted. My point was, if a program is, if there is no child in the classroom on a regular basis, that's what I meant. The efficacy. I didn't mean the efficacy of the educational programs. I would imagine that they are all done well, and I know that is not our purview. But the point is, as Mr. Poi points out, if something is not being utilized, I think that's a fair place for us to take a look at, not to delve into the academic situation, but to see if the classrooms are empty 4 out of the 5 days of the week for certain situations. I think that it would be reasonable for us to oversee that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get some numbers.
Okay.
Mr. Notstein?
I mean, I think we all agree that it's not the purview of the board to decide which ones are working and which aren't. However, I don't even see the administration having these numbers. So to me, there may be some that we may need to add another teacher. Maybe they're so packed every day that it's being overutilized and we need to add another one. Without having some sort of a metric, such as a simple thing as having the teacher submit how many students she tutored that day, how does the administration even know if these programs are worth it or functioning the way that we want to? So I don't think it's asking too much to just give us some raw numbers so the administration has those numbers. Or if the administration has those numbers, I would at least feel better right off the bat that at least someone's looking at these numbers.
Well, I'm sure the administration in the high school has those numbers, because they deal with it all the time, and I don't know that Dr. Hamilton did or didn't have those numbers. Yes, Mr.
May I pose a question to Mr. Goodall? Mr. Goodall, you referenced participation as being heavy at times before. I assume you based that heavy participation explanation on numbers. Is that not correct?
When students come to certain activities, they do sign in, such as CMAC, writing lab, a science lab. So those are numbers I think I can get right away.
Do you feel you do your due diligence in evaluating the cost benefit of these programs?
Yes, and actually, if you recall, during the budget process, I actually looked to add additional hours because of heavy participation, but we had to make a difficult decision and did not at this time add for this year. So we do our diligence, and to assure the board, without having the numbers in front of me, I don't believe there's a crisis of waste that is going on with these after-school supplemental activities and instructional supervision. So, but I will get some formal numbers. I'll give them to Mr. Ventrello. He can share them with you. And again, just reemphasizing that reports of perhaps kids not participating on particular days just could be that time of year. But we did make the decision when we did all those things to consider that some students can come some days and some students can come other days. So that's why we do most of those things 180 days a year.
Good. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, so we'll look forward to those numbers. Anything else? Any other board? Mr. Chiola, how you doing?
All right, and let me just preface this by saying that my good friend Marv over here is probably going to punch me in the mouth. So if you see a fist coming, just warn me so I could block it. But anyway, I just wanted to ask the policy committee, and I sent an email to our board president and to Mr. Gorski, I don't know, a few days ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, regarding the tiering of cultural arts. So I'm not asking for a bill change or anything this time, but I am asking that for the policy committee to consider looking at the way cultural arts is tiered. I think the way we tier it now is we're tiering it as an outside group. If you look at the history of cultural arts and what it provides to the community, we have a history of cultural arts being under the rec department, and it was broken out a couple of years ago. And since that time, we started to treat it as an outside entity when it really is a part of our community. It's not a for-profit group that's running around trying to make money. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just asking for the policy because I hadn't received a response to look at it. And before anybody calls me a shill for the township or the mayor, I just want to be clear that I value my independent nature, and this is not coming from the township at all, but from a number of people who have taken part in some of the shows, most recently shows like Evita, who had some concerns, parents and things like that, who had some concerns about shows being cut and things like that because of the fees that we're currently charging them to use our facilities.
I'm sure Mr. Braverman will have a comment.
The policy committee discussed this 3 times. 3 times they voted to keep the cultural arts on the 2nd tier because that's the definition it fits into. I would further tell you that I have gone to cultural arts programs. They never get more than a half of the auditorium filled. My community runs shows every month, I believe, except December, I think. I don't go to all of them. But we invite the rest of the community in. We pay $2,500 in expenses before we even pay for the entertainment. We fill up the auditorium. We pay our bills. The problem is the mayor, this is the mayor's program, and we did discuss it, and if they had so many people that they can fill up the auditorium, they could afford the program. Quite frankly, if they were in business and they were only getting half the auditorium filled, they'd drop it. Or maybe, if they would think outside of the box, they could team up with East Brunswick or South River or some other town where they also get half the auditorium. And then you'll have a full auditorium and you'll have a program that the mayor likes.
I believe, Mr. Chiarella, that it also had to do with that anybody in the first tier were student-related groups, such as
Ed Foundation, student groups.
Yeah, student groups, the PTAs, the rec center because it had students, and Monroe Ed Foundation. The other tiers were either for-profit groups or adult groups that were using our facilities. So we go through all of our policies yearly. When it comes up again, we'll look at it again.
Well, I'd appreciate that. I just think we're making a mistake. I think the arts are important, and I think that, I think if they're not filling half of their auditorium, then we should probably be looking at how we're charging them for a full auditorium. I think those things go both ways. But as far as the mayor's concerned, and I know you brought the mayor up, I'm here to tell you that I haven't spoken to the mayor. I haven't talked to the mayor in 9 months. So this is not about the mayor and me or anything else. This is about me bringing this forward on my own. And like I said, I'm an independent. Everything I've done on this board has been with independence in mind and the students first. And so, I don't appreciate, saying that this is the mayor's program or the mayor bringing this forward right now. This is me bringing this forward because of concerns that I've heard and the things that I've seen and just something that I see as far as our policy committee that's an injustice. Just like our band policy, I think, was an injustice. And I think we should have done something retroactively with that because those kids came in first. They won nationals. And we turned around and said, well, we don't want to retroactively do this because I don't know why. Maybe we didn't want to spend the money, whatever. But whenever that policy was first implemented and made, someone should have thought about all of the children and not just, hey, this is important because it's football or this is important because it's baseball, but these kids blow a horn and that's not as important as putting on a helmet and going at each other 90 miles an hour. So I just think that I understand that we review our policies yearly and we look at this stuff, but I think that when we review those policies, and we should also have an open mind. So because we are recognizing with this policy change that we've made a mistake with band.
Right.
I was hoping that we would also recognize that we made a mistake in not retroactively, giving those kids what they deserved after what they won. So.
Anyone else? Mr. Kaufman.
I was going to really just kind of go with the flow, but you brought up a good point that I just want to touch on. I agree with everything you said about the awards that we have. The board got the schedule of what was adopted through the policy committee, and I guess I approved it to move this thing forward. But one of the concerns that I had when I looked at the distribution of how the awards work, one of the things that I guess stood out for me was that we have a carve out. We categorize these things. And I don't know why winning a state championship in football should be treated differently than winning the state championship in physics. Academics is just as challenging as physical accomplishments as well. And the way the schedule is broken down, again, this is just off the top of my head, we have, sports excluding football, then I think cheerleading is a carve out. Then the band consideration was put in there again because we won the national championship this year. And I would agree with Ken. We knew fairly early on, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, at the December 2013 meeting, perhaps, when parents came to the table complaining about where we were with the policy. And we knew midway into the school year last year that we had a championship team on our hands, national championship team. And, retroactively, well, okay, but the year was half over. And we kind of delayed it, and we didn't have, whatever, that was then and this is now. But I agree with the things that you mentioned before. I think that it shouldn't be. If you win a national championship in whatever, you get this. If you won a state championship in whatever, you get that. It shouldn't be broken down to the level of detail. Who's to say that a cheerleader works any harder or less harder than a football player? I'm sure if I had daughters and I was going to all the competitions and I saw all the hard work that they do, I would be somewhat put off that it's treated differently because of that particular enterprise. So, thanks for bringing that up. And again, I echo your sentiment that it was not the best face of this board not to do something for the national championship seniors that have graduated that won't get the benefit of the new standard. So,
Anyone else? Ms. Arminio?
My only comment is, while I may agree with you, I think all of those recommendations were made by, the administration, and therefore, by not micromanaging, I think we just accepted their recommendations.
Madam?
I'm not sure about that.
Mr. Gorski?
That was deliberated at length at policy. That wasn't just administration. That was more of a committee process.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will go to closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 to 10:4-21 to discuss the following subjects: Board to receive attorney advice in relation to board ethics, on RFP for legal services process update. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
So moved.
Goldstein, Mr. Prezioso, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Then, at this time, the board will move into closed session.
How long?
That was Tom Nostine.
Yes.
How long?
How long? How long? Half hour? How long are you going to take?
Mine will be relatively quick. The other one, I think, could take, I would say 45 minutes.
40 minutes. At this time, the board will move back into public session and go to the public forum. Again, anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone. Give your name and address for the record, and we will adhere to our 3-minute time limit.
Mark Klein, 7 Crenshaw. Just one question, something I asked a few meetings ago, and I've been asking for it from time to time. As far as, and it was brought up earlier, about the repairs or replacements of the iPads. And what I wanted was the figures as to how much we take in through the insurance versus how much it costs to replace and repair. And we never got that. But I see on tonight's $12,000 broken down on here, and it's on your page 3. And it says it's $12,000 for iPad replacement and or repair, but give you the benefit of the doubt, there's one here for $1,200, general supplies for the high school. So if you back that out, you're still over $10,000. And what we found after the first year, and that was public, so I can bring this up, is that the amount that they took in at $50 a computer, we wound up spending, I think the figure was about another $8,000 or $10,000 above and beyond the insurance. So it would be nice if every month or every 3 months that there's a report made keeping the public up to date as to how much money is being spent on repairs and replacement. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gorski?
Just very quickly to your comment, Mr. Klein, with the new insurance policy, there would be no extraneous cost to the board.
Okay. What did we have last year? Did we have any of that last year? The outside insurance?
I don't know. I'd have to check. I don't
Okay,
know.
so this will cover for whatever that was.
You had Apple Care for the last 2 years, so there was no cost to the board because the parents paid the $50 deductible, and so it costs $50 to repair it, so to offset it. So there was no cost to the Board of Education based on the $50 that the parents were paying.
That's if it's a $50 repair.
No. Regardless of the repair, any type of repair, you $50 and you get a brand new
From
one
Apple?
back. Yes.
Okay, so if somebody stomped on the board, the monitor, and they stomped on it, are you telling me that that would be sent back and they would replace it?
Unless it's totally irrevocable damage, and then the cost goes right to the parent for the full
Because
iPad.
there was 1 or 2 the first year that was stomped.
first year there was no Apple Care Plus.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera Drive. Madam President, on or around August 8th, someone showed me your posts on Facebook, all of which had no disclaimer that you were not speaking on behalf of the board, noting Dr. Gorman's contract renewal was not approved by some members of the Board of Education, leaving him without a contract for the 2014-15 school year. You went on to say it's sad because of all the accolades the district has received. On another post, you noted that the ad hoc committee has not met because of summer vacation. You also stated that any sound decision must be approved by the majority of the board or 6 members. Those votes are not there. Both these posts show a divisive and unprofessional attitude, which foments mistrust and antagonism. The charge of the ad hoc committee is extremely important. As you admittedly had the redistricting study in hand, you might have reached out to the members of that committee to check to see if of their availability, instead of assuming they aren't available during the summer, as was correctly suggested by a resident who had wrote posts on Facebook as well. Furthermore, your comment about the number of votes by the board is highly speculative as well as unprofessional. This board has the ability to decide what will work or not, and you shouldn't be making such decisions in advance. Your statement about email conversations getting misinterpreted when done in writing needs to be addressed. First, you are not emailing. And secondly, I don't think you should be editorializing board business on Facebook. The innocence of your statements must be questioned, as you have previously used Facebook to offer or support comments or opinions. We need to work together and encourage discourse, not be fearful of differences of opinion. Infighting, unprofessional behavior, mistrust, and misinformation by board members set a poor example for the school system you lead and the residents who support it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the board? From the public?
Evening. My name is Jeff Bell, 49 Keswick Circle, Monroe Township. I think my question would be directed to you, Mr. Gorski. Can you bring me up to speed with respect to the process and/or the methodology that was used in determining the reduction in the bus routes to Mill Lake and the Devonshire community? I think given the fact that, as you previously stated, the Mill Lake route was now reinstituted after some scrubbing of the numbers, so to speak, the Devonshire community now is the only community that would be adversely affected exclusively, and yet there doesn't seem, or there didn't seem to be any outreach by the board for members of that community to discuss any of the concerns that they had.
Mr. Gorski?
Yes. I appreciate the question. And when we were faced with $2.7 million of being over cap at the last budget cycle, we had, and I'll be the first to say it, we had a rush, we had a very short period of time to find cuts to make up that amount of money. I worked intimately with our transportation director, who has very sophisticated software showing all of the routes, showing all of the stops, showing the cluster of students that are in each spot, and it's very helpful in the process. We review state laws, and with regard to the Mill Lake route, as I said before, you know, I actually went out to the route and I walked it myself, and it's a mile. And my opinion was it was too strenuous for a child to be walking that route at that age level. And not to mention that to create parity with the other schools, there are no other schools that have kids walking that far that I could find. So it was fair and reasonable to put that route back, especially because it was easy. It was one route to reinstate it and then eliminate another one and redistribute the kids to other buses that exist already. So the cost savings was still recognized. The Devonshire is 2 routes affecting that development. It's about $80,000. And from inception of that development, we had worked with the developer who, to the knowledge that I've been provided, was supposed to put sidewalks to facilitate walking from Devonshire to the two schools. And that sidewalk never made completion. It stopped short.
Correct.
The district then, through the recommendation of the board members, Building, Grounds, and Transportation Committee, finished the sidewalk at our expense. I walked the Devonshire route from the furthest bus stop to the building. I walked the sidewalk. I walked along the crosswalk where it's going to be staffed by a district teacher. I walked through Brookside, on the sidewalk again to Barclay Brook School if the student was going to go over there. Again, this is all supervised by staff from start to finish. And in my opinion, and in the opinion of the transportation director, that route is perfectly safe, and it's not unreasonable to expect children to walk that very short distance under those conditions to get to school.
Okay, I would think that one of the only problems that I see with that, the transportation has been provided up until this point. And in that, I would agree that the schools are very close to that development. And my understanding was that there was supposed to have been a pathway created within that development to access those two schools. My biggest concern is that you would have kids as young as 6 years old walking along, even though it is a small distance, let's say, from the corner of the development down to the school. I think it'd just be more appropriate for at least kids going to Barclay Brook who are, 6 or in kindergarten, first and second grade. Kindergarten, first and second would possibly continue to be bused, and kids who are in third, fourth, and fifth grade who are a little bit more mature and people would feel a little bit more comfortable about allowing those children to walk versus, someone as young as 6.
We'll certainly take that under consideration, as we do all residents' comments. Fortunately, if it helps, that sidewalk is far enough off the road that I felt that it wouldn't be something that a child could easily walk off of, and the momentum of the cars going around that corner would take a spinning car away from the sidewalk and away from potentially hurting a child there. But
right, because granted that like the Monmouth Road road that actually would access the two schools in Mill Lake is, I believe it's a 25 posted speed limit, 522 in that area. That's posted at 45, and I just, for a 6-year-old, I just think that's a little bit concerning. It's, for not just only for myself, but for a lot of the parents in the neighborhood.
it is 25 when students are present. There's a flashing sign there, but your point's still noted.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Lou Masters, 9 McKellar Court. Welcome, Mr. V. Dr. Gorman, good luck. That's all I'm going to say. I talked to you before, so it's not a big deal. My first 2 questions are for you, Mike. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Right around this time, we usually apply for the Energy for America grant. Is that in process? I know last year it was about over $500,000, right?
You're referring to the safety grant, I believe?
Yes, about 550.
Yes. We did apply for a safety grant. We were awarded a safety grant. It was previously reported to the board, and the number that comes back into memory is something in the range of $49,000 that we received.
That's not the one I'm thinking of then, but all right, there was one roughly, it was September. It was Energy, I think it was called Energy for America, EFA.
EFA is the contractor that regulates the temperature in all the buildings.
That might be it, but it was
They never had any kind of grant like that.
All right.
But we did get a safety grant through the insurance consortium, and that's what I referred to before, and that's going to go to good use at the schools. I think that's what you're thinking of, but
I'll look. I read everything down. The second one, the renovations, the middle school, the parking lot looks great. The roof, though, is that on track still? It's making me nervous.
yes, I'm glad you asked. We talked about this at the Building, Grounds, Transportation Committee meeting. We did have delays because of the horrendous rain that we've had recently. The rain has gone through some of the roof areas, has caused havoc on some of the electrical systems in the school. Fire alarms went off one night. We've got all that corrected now. What you're seeing on the roof is those white, they look like spongy panels. That's actually insulation that goes up there, and then a layer of roofing goes on. It'll be more insulated than it was before. And we have a very good contractor on that was part of the low bid on that project. We were fortunate. So our work schedule is on par where we're supposed to be. Will be completed by school. I'm very pleased to report that the state's picking up 40% of the tab for that roofing project. However, they disassociated the site work project, which is the cement and the paving, and that's the district's gonna have to foot the full bill for that.
That's the ROD grants, right?
We're on task. And another thing that is kudos to the Board of Education, if I may say so, as the secretary, is that that project in its entirety was done within the very tight school budget cap. That cap is very difficult for some school districts just to cover bargaining agreements. And we're doing roofing projects, site upgrades, and we do this every year. So that's a wonderful use of the taxpayers' money.
I agree. All right, now to personnel. E, it talks about a Chris Sidler, who's resigning as soccer coach. Just clarification, I'm not understanding this. And then 25, under DD, it says you're hiring as a soccer coach, assistant soccer coach. So is he resigning as head and you're hiring as assistant?
If I may, Lou, he's going from one position to another.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Because the other thing that kind of concerns me, you have, if you don't count him, he's the only one that's a duplicate, 8 resignations in personnel, which is, to me, is quite a large number. If you look at the percentage, it's pretty high. It's very disconcerting. We still do exit interviews, right? Do we do them at all levels, or?
The answer is yes.
Do we do them at all the levels, even paras, or no?
I think everybody gets an exit interview.
Okay, as long as, just something to keep an eye on. That's a disproportionate, highly disproportionate number of resignations.
You may recall from your service on the board that the board is apprised of some of the higher level exit interviews, but I believe everybody at least gets an interview with their immediate supervisor, principal, or whatever the case may be.
And we're keeping an eye on it just in case there's a
Yes, sir.
problem. All right, thank you.
If everybody else is finished with we'll see you again.
On my last question, I
Please
sort of
give your name and
I
address
sort
for
of
the
let it
record.
go over my head. 7 Crenshaw, Mark Klein. The cost of an iPad is roughly $549. Approximately how much?
Current iPad, it depends what value.
Okay, well, here's what I'm getting to. If we're covered by Apple's insurance,
We're no longer covered.
this is for last year,
Yes.
$12,000.
240 iPads.
Okay, didn't you just say that we had insurance from Apple last year?
And it expired June 31st.
Okay, these are all dated 6/13, June 13th.
Correct.
$12,000. If we have Apple's care program, why are we spending $12,000 on repairs and replacement?
Those were just the $50 that parents paid to initiate. So when you have Apple Care and you say, okay, I will need an iPad, then they say, well, you got to give us $50 to process it. That is what we collected from the parents.
So in other words, all these bills here, the money did not come from our general fund.
Correct.
It came from the insurance paid for by the parents.
The protection fee, yes.
And the amount of money collected from all the parents covered all our expenditures, or were we in the black?
No, all
I should
repair
say in the red.
We're actually, Mike, we have additional money in that fund.
In the
In the
yeah,
fund,
iPad
the
repair
insurance fund.
We had like $70,000 left.
When the policy was developed, there was a surplus that was intended to be established in that fund that would then be carried over to use on a future refreshment program.
Okay.
There were some extra units that had to be purchased. The insurance comes out of the monies paid for parents.
Well, extra units based on population.
Yes.
I understand that. Yes. I'm just concerned with what it's costing us in repairs and replacements. If the insurance covers that, that's all well and good. But as you know, the first year it did not.
Well, the good news is, as I stated before, going forward, there will be no district contribution for repairs and such.
Good.
It'll be covered by
Thank you.
insurance, and the cost of the insurance and the deductible are passed to the ultimate user, being the students and parents.
Good. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll close the public forum. And our next scheduled special Board of Education meeting is Saturday, August 23rd, 2014, 10 o'clock a.m. at the Monroe Township High School. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Kaufman. Is there a second? By Mr. Zarneski. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The meeting is adjourned.